Do you know what your favorite episode of Good Omens is? If 13-year-old me was asked this question, this little version of myself from 2019 that just finished watching Good Omens for the first time, I would answer you without any hesitation, just like the rest of the fandom. Episode 3. The reason for this is that in the first half of episode 3, we were given way more Aziraphale and Crowley content than we were given in any other episode, but it also had most of the fan favorite moments from the entire season. For example, Crowley saving Aziraphale throughout the ages, Aziraphale killing a man for creeps, long-haired Crowley, and of course, the "you go too fast for me" scene. But now that there's a new season, filled with 6 new episodes, full of never-before-seen content, well, if we don't count that one Victorian scene that was in the book, people have harder time choosing one favorite episode. It really comes down to what the individual's preference is, like if they enjoy action scenes better, or more relaxed and calm moments, whether they like the romance and chemistry between the main duo, or the comedy in the chaos of it all. And now with season 2, you're given more options to choose from, because every episode brings something new to the table, and everyone can choose what they like the most. Unlike with season 1, where everyone chose episode 3 only because it had more Aziraphale and Crowley than it had in the rest of the series. Now you may be asking, what is my favorite episode? I knew this episode was going to be my favorite immediately after I saw the teaser image of them like sitting on a rock together and staring into the distance. That fucking picture made me feel more stuff than the entirety of Heartstopper did. I absolutely fell in love with this episode the first time I watched this, and my love just kept growing every time I rewatched. Okay, but let's be honest, most of us got worried after we saw that beard. But now? Everyone loves Bildad the Shuite. Imagine writing a character so well that everyone ignores the animal that died on his face. Anyways, as you can notice, I've only talked about the minisode part of the episode so far, and that is, well, because I'm only going to talk about the minisode. It's really well written, and probably the best one out of the entire season. It would be weird to talk about the present day between minisodes and analysis when I'm not really talking about the rest of the season, so I decided to talk about the parts that I'm most passionate about, and that's the minisode parts. But still, the present day events that happen in this episode are still the most iconic events in this entire season, so let's take a moment to commemorate the scenes that didn't make it in this video. Anyway, see, all these scenes were in this episode! So as I've said before, I think this minisode is the best one out of the 3 of them. I may be biased because as a retired kid that was raised in a Christian household, I really adore when Good Omens does its own twist on Bible stories. But I also think it has the best cinematography, ineffable husbands moments, and parts that can be analyzed in detail. Because these characters feel very raw in this minisode, and I don't know, it made me feel the same stuff I felt when I watched episode 3 for the first time. Anyways, let's jump into it. So the minisode starts with Crowley about to destroy Job's goats. I really like that he starts talking to them and puts the fear of God in them before killing them. It kind of feels like the planned situation all over again. Moments like these really show how angry Crowley is about his fall, to the point where he feels the need to criticize God and shit-talk them at every chance he gets. When Aziraphale arrived, I absolutely love this halo effect type of thing around him. What a great stylistic choice, it looks so good. He immediately mentions that the last time they saw each other was when the flood was happening. So this is the 3rd time they met. Post Crowley's fall. You can really feel that when they're interacting. They're very formal and held back, not really knowing what to expect from each other, which is reasonable because they barely know each other at this point. That's why Crowley has this weird need to make Aziraphale think he's this evil asshole throughout the entire minisode. Contrast to present day Crowley, that is way more casual about being good and doing nice things. He still feels the need to keep appearances in front of Aziraphale, but more on that later. After finding out that Job has been forsaken, Aziraphale goes to heaven and learns that not only all of the material objects will be taken from Job, but also his children will be murdered, which freaks out Aziraphale, obviously. What I find really interesting in this scene is that Aziraphale doesn't really care about the animals. He looks only shocked when he finds out that the children will die, but looks pretty okay when he hears about the geese and goats dying. While Crowley, on the other hand, risks everything to save the goats. I don't think they'd return the same animals to Job, just like they wouldn't return the same children, which made me think, do geese have souls? Is there something like an animal heaven when they die? Or are they just soulless being, and that's why Aziraphale doesn't really care about them? That really made me wonder.
Around and I need them for a thing.
This is the funniest line out of this entire episode. Here we have another instance of Crowley tempting people into doubting God, which some may interpret as, him doing his job. But I see it as Crowley trying very hard to make them question things, just like he did. Because Job here has been forsaken by God because of a dumb bet, yet he remains devoted to them after everything that just happened. Imagine how hard it had to be for Crowley to watch Job blindly follow God when he knows that they have given up on him. This scene, I love this scene. So Crowley just arrived to kill Job's children, but Aziraphale, who has just learned that they are in danger, arrived to the crypt too to try to stop Crowley. And I absolutely adore this scene. The dialogue is so fucking good here. You can really see here how their dynamic used to be so different and how their relationship really developed throughout the years. You could also kind of see that in episode 3 of season 1, but there was just so little time for each time episode that it was less noticeable. Tension between these two is insane, and at this point of time, they didn't really know each other that well. They only met few times, but they sort of already understand each other. Crowley wants Aziraphale to think that he's cruel and unpredictable, yet Aziraphale saw by their previous conversation that their views may be really similar. But instead of realizing that because they both have pretty much the same views, it means that they both go directly against their sides and end up on the same one, he thinks that Crowley's views align with Heaven's. That's why he says that he knew the angel he once were, because he thinks that deep down, Crowley is still an angel, just like him, because he sees angels as these good-doing, great, divine beings. Meanwhile, he looks at demons as the bad guys, which means that Crowley has to be more of an angel than a demon. But Crowley has seen how bad both sides are. He can't be an angel because he can't follow God blindly anymore. Then they make the most insane eye contact ever when Aziraphale asks him to look into his eyes and say that this is what he wants. And this is where Crowley breaks this evil front that he's been putting on before Aziraphale this entire time. Instead of just saying it normally, he adds the words blameless to every single word. You can also interpret that as Crowley fucking with Aziraphale again, reminding him how innocent these beings are and how God is so cruel to do this to them. I think it's more of Crowley expressing his anger towards this entire situation, showing Aziraphale in a very subtle way that he realizes how blameless they are, yet this is what God wants, so he has to do it. Aziraphale asks God to forgive him and leaves. And I think this is Crowley's snapping point of sorts, because as he said in season 1, I won't be forgiven, unforgivable. That's what I am. And suddenly, the crowd starts bleating. They didn't do that until now, they only start doing that after Aziraphale tries to leave Crowley. How convenient. I think Crowley made them bleed, because that's what makes Aziraphale turn around, only for Crowley to give him that look. And that look is just so important, because if Crowley didn't care, he would just walk away. If he didn't give a fuck what Aziraphale thinks about him, he wouldn't have stayed, he would just go in and save the children himself. Yet he stays, and looks at Aziraphale with that fucking look. He knows Aziraphale will figure it out. He wants Aziraphale to figure it out. Look at what I've done. I did not kill them. I'm not evil. That's what that fucking look says. That's not a look of, oh hey, are you figuring this out? Oh fuck, I hoped you wouldn't catch me. It's Crowley standing there, observing Aziraphale, observing his reaction, something that he does very frequently. He did it. He saved the goats and would do it again. I should be your hereditary enemy. Yet I am on your side. Crowley fell because he questioned things, because he couldn't blindly follow orders, because he had morals and his own opinions. He didn't belong to heaven, but after falling, he quickly realized that he doesn't belong to hell either. I'm of the opinion that if he didn't fall, he'd do the same thing in heaven, follow heaven as much as he can. Because Crowley is the only one to see that neither of these sides are right. That's why he's on his own side, alone. And suddenly he meets this angel, which apparently he knew before, but the point still stands, who gives out his sword. The sword that was given to him by gods themselves, that he gave to fucking humans who shouldn't have a sword, because that's God's plan and he just ruined it. And he did it purely because his good heart and morals told him to, because he couldn't watch them suffer without helping. This is the first being that Crowley met who wasn't brainwashed by their side. Later, Aziraphale realizes that it doesn't matter. He can think that he's following heaven, but Crowley, who isn't manipulated by either side's propaganda anymore, sees that this pure-hearted motherfucker is different. Crowley begins to be interested in Aziraphale and starts observing him and is just generally intrigued. He wants Aziraphale to start questioning things, just like he did. He doesn't want them to be on the same side yet, because he doesn't know that this side is even possible. He still only sees two sides, heaven and hell.
Doesn't mean we're on the same side.
Because he thinks that for them to be on the same side, he would have to be on heaven's side. He just wants him to realize that heaven is propaganda, just like when he talked to Job and Sithis and, the goats. That's why he keeps asking Aziraphale stuff every time they meet. He really wants him to start questioning his side, and he keeps going like, oh wow, God is drowning all the children. You agree with that? Oh no, God is okay with making their followers suffer for no reason? Oh, the Almighty is about to murder these blameless goats and children? Yeah, you okay with that? Like, you agree? You think that's okay? And that's why that scene is so important for them and me. Because it's Crowley showing once again with that fucking look. See? What do you think about this? Who is the moral one in this situation? Am I the wrong one? Or is God? He wants Aziraphale to know he is different. That Crowley is different. I think it's so important to highlight that at the end of the day, Crowley always felt lonely. Aziraphale was his spark in the darkness, the only person that ever understood him. He wanted Aziraphale to realize so badly that both sides are toxic. He repeatedly tried over and over again for 6,000 years. And yet, Aziraphale still chose heaven. Crowley thought that after 1941, where they admitted that they are both on the grey side, after the 60s, where Aziraphale trusted him enough to give him holy water, after the Armageddon, where they had to fool both of their sides just to fucking survive, after the 4 years that they spent living normally together, something that he always hoped for, he thought that Aziraphale would finally understand. But he didn't. And this entire fucking rant happened because of one glance. Long story short, Crowley always seeked Aziraphale's validation. Anyways, the children walk in, David Tennant's kid flirts with his best friend, Satan wouldn't dare, she's good. Are you demon? He's technically sort of a demon. Wait no, stop, I want to talk about that line. Did you notice it? This is Aziraphale once again thinking that Crowley can be a demon because he does good. Thinking that Crowley's fall had to be a mistake because how can he be a demon if he's nice? One of the finale's most discussed lines, you are the bad guys, but heaven is the side of light, of truth, all over again. He had to be drugged, he wouldn't say that. My ass, he did it before. Anyways, let's continue. I'm a demon, I lied. Rah, he has a permit, you see. Aziraphale sees right through Crowley. Aziraphale is a sassy asshole once again. Lizard storm, boom. Crowley pours himself an Aziraphale wine, but after Aziraphale loses his shit over it, Crowley finds the ideal situation to fuck with him again and tempts Aziraphale into eating. I find this detail so sweet because Aziraphale loves food and becomes really fond of eating and all the tastes. So it's really nice to see that actually Crowley was the one to introduce him to it. I love how throughout the ages they introduce each other to new stuff and explain stuff to each other and grow together and enjoy Earth together. Place that they fell in love with and fell in love at. Then we find out that Crowley considers himself to be on his own side, and Aziraphale finds that lonely. And Crowley does too, but he's unable to talk about his feelings properly, even in current day, so he obviously wouldn't say that to a guy that he barely knows. Or at least he wouldn't until he absolutely must in an effort to comfort the said guy. We also have another instance here of Aziraphale thinking that Crowley must be on heaven's side, and another instance of Crowley making Aziraphale question stuff in order to fuck with him. These two guys, I swear. Then we have the scene where Job asks God's questions while Aziraphale and Crowley watch, and we get these heartbreaking lines. Aziraphale says, I don't suppose he's getting any answers, and Crowley responds, no, but just to be able to ask the question. Watching this happen had to hurt Crowley so much, because he wasn't able to ask the question. Probably fell because of asking questions. Yet now he sees Job asking without zero consequences, even though he's not getting any answers, but just as he said, that doesn't really matter. Ostriches, whales, angels come, whatever. Bildad the Shuhite! Whoa! Everyone's beloved god, indeed! Does anyone need shoes? Woo! I really like that Bildad here comes in after Siti swears that she would curse God if that were to happen, and he came in with the words, that never ends well. Imagine if God lost the bet against Satan. Like, yes, Siti's and Job wouldn't end well. It's another instance of Crowley saving people from eternal damnation, just as he did with the girl from episode 3. He hates heaven, but he still doesn't want them to suffer in hell. I'm just quickly going to go over through my favorite parts of this scene. Aziraphale's quick silent clap, Crowley ironically proclaiming Gabriel is a childbirth expert, Gabriel not getting it, Siti's pulling out the ox rib that Aziraphale ate the night before, this little Aziraphale gesture, now a loud Aziraphale clap, the way Crowley pronounces baby,
Was Eve a baby?
and this fucking part. Aziraphale lies here, but as we've seen throughout the entire series, Aziraphale isn't really a good liar. He always starts stuttering, looking around, etc. Yet he doesn't do that here, even though he did it few scenes before this one. And I thought about it for a while, but on a rewatch, I noticed something. Here, in this scene, he just realized that he just went directly against heaven. And to him, that means that he's a fallen angel, just like he says later on. So when he says, "You have my word as an angel," he doesn't think he's really lying, because he doesn't see himself as an angel anymore. He even looks at Crowley before saying it, to the demon on his shoulder per se, confirming in his head that he's part of hell now, on Crowley's side. It just really shows how selfless and loving Aziraphale is. In this moment, in this scene, Aziraphale consciously decided that he would rather fall than let these children die. Even though he loves heaven with his entire heart, he was ready to be exiled, just so that these strangers can live their lives happily. And Crowley even claps for him. Heartbreaking. And then our last scene. Not only of the minisode, but of the entire episode. I think this was a great scene to end the entire episode on. Because on the first watch, I thought that the minisode part is over, and that the Job story would end with Aziraphale lying, and that would be the end of that arc. But then out of nowhere, this scene arrives, and you get completely crushed by it because you didn't expect it, and then the episode just fucking ends. Like, it's great. Also, this scene is probably my favorite scene of this entire season, if not the entire show. Aziraphale, after lying to heaven, stares at the horizon, admiring Earth for the last time before being dragged to hell. He's trying to calm himself down and accept the new reality while being visibly distressed. But then Crowley walks in. After Aziraphale tells him he's ready to go to hell, Crowley sits down while looking at him a bit gloomy and proclaims he's not going to take him there because he wouldn't like it, and tells him that he's never going to tell anyone. Crowley is kind to Aziraphale here. He wants to comfort him, but in a very distant way because he doesn't want to seem weak. He really likes looking stoic and emotionless, the front of the big bad demon, as he did until now and as he will continue to keep doing until the finale. As they start knowing each other better, Crowley starts getting more relaxed and calm around Aziraphale, but that won't be for a while from now on. But in an attempt to comfort Aziraphale, he lets his guard down for a second to admit that he's lonely too, with the saddest closing line, "I'm a demon. I lied." And then we have the most poetic, beautiful shot that I've ever seen. This is my favorite shot from the entire series. I think it perfectly summarizes their relationship. After spending the last 2 days together, feasting together, going against their superiors together, they are still hereditary enemies. At the end of the day, even though they enjoy each other's company, they can't have it. Even though they both realize that they are not fully part of their sides, they can be. Their morals and views are too different. But what they didn't realize yet is that when they both step away from their sides, they end up on the same middle ground. And now that they're not part of anything, they find themselves lonely, directionless. Yet by sitting on the same stone, in this moment, they may feel lonely, but they're not alone. Without acknowledging it, they share this burden together, but aren't ready to see that they're on the same side yet. And then time goes on. They become closer, get to know each other better, their relationship blooms, and eventually develop a partnership of sorts. No matter how much time passes, they know that even though they haven't seen each other for years at a time, the other one is out there somewhere. And suddenly, they find themselves alone, but never feeling lonely. But they don't know that yet while they're sitting on this stone. They still cling onto the idea that they're at least a little bit part of their sides. The space between them is their sides pulling them apart. So even after everything that just happened in these past 2 days, they're unable to sit next to each other and just look into the distance. And that's the end of the analysis. Woo! I know this took me like a month to make, and I'm really sorry about that. But I've been really busy with school and just life in general, and I really didn't want to rush it because this episode is really important to me, so I'd feel really bad if I just half-ass it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then feel free to check out my channel. I have more Good Omens related videos on there. And if you want to be notified when I upload again, whenever that will be, then feel free to subscribe. I love hearing from all of you. I read as many comments as I possibly can. So go talk to me in the comments. What is your favorite episode? What did you think about this video? Do you agree with me? I think I reached at some points, but I don't know. This is just how I see it. So if you disagree with me, then let me know in the comments. I would love to talk about it. And if you want to hear more from me and care about some of my mediocre art, then follow me on Tumblr. I would say that I'm more active on there, but I would be lying. I'm really struggling, I'm so sorry. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video and for getting this far. You're a real one. I hope you'll have a great day. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. My cat sat into my recording chair. So today's episode, he's going to be the one to talk about Good Omens. What is your opinion on Good Omens?